Hi, and welcome back to family sociology, looking at wedding bells, part 2. Now we're going to explore the sociological perspectives on marriage, and we're going to look at common law more thoroughly, and what makes relationships and marriages happy, conflicts in marriage, types of marriage, and we're going to finish it off with some thoughts about marriage in the future. And what we're going to start with, it will begin with the feminist perspective. The feminists see that generally women are exploited by men through marriage. Now, this is particularly the issue in the Victorian era, where women trade childbearing and household family care for financial support and status that was provided by the man. Now, things are different from then. However, there are vestiges of this in today's families from the feminist perspective. Remember, the feminists want to break down patriarchy, the men and the women. So they're basically saying the more egalitarian is where they want to be, and it's what makes the most sense from their perspective, a more balanced. Symbolic interactionalists, as is usual, these guys look at the face-to-face, day-to-day interactions between spouses. Now, they would look at the meaning and the manner the couple communicate, how they resolve conflicts, and how they merge their individual family backgrounds and traditions into their own family, their family of procreation. So they're looking at the face-to-face words and how we understand those words between those two people. Structural functionalists, they see the family as having separate roles for men and women, or separate functions that ensure that the survival of the family occurs. Now, until the 1970s, most of their assumptions were based on the standard North American family, mom and dad and kids. Now, this may not hold as much water with the emergence of alternative family types. Then we're going to look at conflict. Now, remember, they look at how marriage is going to create and maintain the social inequities that occur already in the society, depending upon where one stands. For example, the social class, upper class versus middle class versus lower class. That will make a huge difference. Ethnicity and religion may also influence a family's access to resources. Then the developmental perspective, now they argue that there are 4 tasks to accomplish in order to transition to a successful marriage. The first thing to do is to establish an identity. You're moving from me to we. So that's first. Establish your we identity. You define boundaries. What makes us us and what makes everybody else everybody else. Then 3, maintain a household. That's the divvy up of the responsibilities and maintaining a successful household. And then 4, manage their relationship. Now here, by developing the we-ness, the expectation is that we're going to be able to depend on each other to satisfy our needs. And so a lot of the courting and dating that occurred helps us understand who we are and developing our we-ness. But certainly in marriage, we better have our we-ness. The ecological model suggests that the couple and their individual microsystems need to reorganize to best fit with the new relationship. Now, this can include how frequent families of orientation occurs, involvement from your friends and family of orientation, your parents or your partner's parents, in-laws, and how you bridge and merge traditions and celebrations. Now, we're going to explore the cohabitation and common law arrangement as an alternative to marriage, and we'll look at that more closely. Together, but not married, which is cohabitation or common law. And in Canada, cohabitation is increasingly accepted, especially among younger people. Common law union, a union of 2 partners in a lasting relationship resembling marriage. In 2011, Stats Canada indicated that there was 2.8 million Canadians aged 15 and older, making up 16.7% of all census families. Proportion has doubled over the last 2 decades. You'll see that in table 4.1. For cohorts born before 1960, the proportion of cohabiting couples is also increasing. This all suggests that many people are choosing to cohabitate instead of remarrying after divorce or widowhood. So living together by the law, what's the law about cohabitation? Well, Canadians generally view cohabitation as a prelude to marriage rather than a substitute for it. The notable exception is Quebec, where many believe that common law is a distinct alternative to marriage. You'll see that in table 4.2. Now, federally, those living together for 1 year can receive couple benefits. However, each province sets its own conditions for common law status. In Ontario, that's 3 years living together, or if the couple has a child by birth or adoption, then it's 1 year. Common law union can be the same or opposite sex. You don't have to. It's not just common law is good for heterosexual. It's for both. So it doesn't make a difference in your legal purposes. The legal law is the same. Often cohabitating couples do not have the same property rights as married couples. Whoever owns it, whether it's a car, house, or business, keeps it if the relationship ends. Showing that a partner contributed to the car or house or the business, that can alter the expectations. In comparing cohabitation with marriage, in some ways, cohabitation and marriage are alike. Both involve romantic relationships, pooling of income and expenses, child rearing if children are involved, and the benefits of emotional support. Marriage tends to be more permanent. No waiting period for legal rights and responsibilities to apply in marriage as when couples live in common law. Common law not governed by the same social expectations. Cost of leaving are seen as lower than marital separation and divorce. People who had romantic relationships and sexual intercourse younger are more likely to cohabitate. So what difference, if any, is there in between marital relationships and happiness? Let's go down that path. Studies show that the level of happiness are highest in early marriage, rising at the birth of the first child, then dropping off with teenagers in the family, increasing when children leave the home and couples live without them. However, happiness never reached high levels as it was early on in the marriage. Other studies found that happiness declined over time. However, the amount of decrease was related to the couple's happiness at the beginning of the research. Mixed unions have implications arise based on their different cultural traditions, relationships with extended families, the in-laws, religion, death of a mother or a father, and caring for the survivor. In regards for same-sex couples, their happiness is similar to those of heterosexual couples. For cohabitation couples, it's difficult to make general statements about happiness. It includes so many variations. As cohabitation is more accepted, therefore less stigma attached to it. Both marriage and cohabitation support improved psychological well-being. So how do our individual qualities and interactions between partners affect our relationships? Measuring marital happiness is really very difficult, given all the variables that can influence this topic: length of marriage, age of the individuals, reasons for marrying. We can also look to the research investigation regarding what evaluative tools do research use. So we're going to start looking at 4 factors that can influence relationship satisfaction. The first one, what do individuals bring to the relationship? 2, how the couple interact with one another. 3, how do they deal with conflict? And 4, how do extended family and others affect the couple? Let's break these down a little bit. We'll start with the first, individual qualities. When we enter a relationship, we bring our personality, our past history with us, the good and the bad and the ugly. Researchers have identified that there are what are known as the Big 5 personality traits. Check it on page 112, figure 4.2. They fall on a continuum, each of these. So conscientiousness is singled out as critical. Partners who are emotionally healthy have higher levels of empathy and interpersonal skills and are more accurately interpreting messages of their partner and sending. Now that's also fits within what we know as emotional quotient, which is the management of our emotions. The stronger we are at that, the better we are as a partner. And let's look at the second point, interaction between the partners. Now, relationship style of couples is related to both problem solving and marital satisfaction. Spending a long time talking, however, does not necessarily mean that the couple's communication is effective. More communication is not always better. Effective communication depends on continued use of maintenance strategies. Being positive or helpful when the partner is tired or cross or otherwise negative. Listening effectively. Capitalization. Well, this is the process of responding to positive events by celebrating or sharing good news with one another. You can capitalize on the sharing of good news by reliving and receiving positive feedback. Nonverbal communication may be more important than what each partner actually says. Okay, we'll look at the third point. Conflict in the relationship will happen in all relationships. Conflict itself is not bad, it's how we handle it. Remember, conflict isn't bad or unnatural. It is normal and it can be very healthy. The main issue isn't whether or not you have conflict, it's how you approach and deal with interpersonal conflict. Again, this comes back to emotional quotient. It's very important. So how are conflicts resolved? Well, for some of what is at issue here are two questions. Are they having troubles because they fight? Or are they fighting because they're having troubles? Individuals have different conflict styles. Those most successful in dealing with differences are those who de-escalate conflict instead of feeding the anger. Those who trade anger for anger are more likely to set off a vicious cycle. The balance between conflict and pleasant aspects of marriage is also important. Every negative interaction should be balanced by 4 or 5 positive ones. The fourth point, extended family and others. Now, how the extended family members, your in-laws, can have an important impact on couples' marital happiness. Our conflict style is related to our own family of orientation. Ultimately, couples need to commit to their we-ness when dealing with extended family and friends. The social media's influence in our relationship is growing, both the good and the bad. Happiness is demonstrated when one posts images of both of you and your partner rather than posting pictures of yourself without one's partner. Okay, let's carry on with the types of marriage. Levy and Olson in 1993 collected data from over 8,000 heterosexual married American couples and measured the spouse's evaluation of their relationship along 9 dimensions. Now, these dimensions include personality issues, communication, conflict resolution, financial management, leisure activities, sexual relationship, children and parenting, family and friends, and religious orientation. Then they identified 7 types of marriages. Now, what's interesting here is each category self-report as being happy. Now you can see how these are divided up on page 115. But remember, each category, each of the 7 types of marriages self-report as being happy. Even when you read it, it may not come across that way to you because it wouldn't suit you, but it does suit them. Okay, let's move on about when marriage maybe doesn't go so well. And we'll look at things like infidelity. Sex outside a committed relationship ranges from one-night stands to long-term relationships. Can be only sexual. It's not only in terms of a sexual, but it could also be emotional or a combination. The interaction with the internet lover may lead to emotional withdrawal from a partner. Some other observations regarding infidelity. Men are more likely to be unfaithful, though recent studies show rates for men and women are becoming more alike. For men, being married or cohabitating has no significant effect on predicting infidelity. Married women are less likely to be unfaithful. More highly educated people are more likely to report engaging in infidelity. Infidelity is the single most cited cause of divorce. Cohabitators are more likely than the married couple to part, to go their own ways, if you will. And it can result in rage, loss of trust, fear, lower self-esteem. Men are more likely to be angry and jealous over sexual aspects. Women are more likelier to be jealous over emotional aspects. Married happiness throughout life. There really is not one single way to make for a happy marriage. Studies done on couples have been in long-term relationships 50 years, generally found whether they started happy or not, they remain pretty much the same throughout the relationship. Now there's 2 factors that are important here, openness and honesty. Help couples to find ways to talk about conflict and keeping negativity to a minimum. If and when troubles do emerge, commitment is the first most important factor. Commitment to work together at solving problems as they rise. When commitment is not enough, sometimes forgiveness becomes an important repairing of a marriage, especially when it's been of a serious betrayal, such as fidelity. Not everyone feels they can do that. Scholars have also identified sanctification as a factor in some long-lasting marriages. The marriage is seen as having a higher purpose. So lastly, what about the future of marriage? Does marriage have a future? Well, statistically, marriage is on the decline. It's likely to result in the delayed marriage. It's likely the result of people delaying getting married, partly because of tighter economic times, partly because of an increase in cohabitation before marriage, education, difficulty in getting a job. Another view is that marriage is changing to meet the needs of the changing society, moving from a patriarchal husband-led system to something more egalitarian. Same-sex marriages is unlikely to undermine marriage as a whole. Cohabitation, because of many couples involved, has had and probably will have a significant impact on marriage. Because of the value still placed on marriage, it will, in all likelihood, survive. Well, there we go. That was a review of wedding bells, or not, perhaps more to it than you may have thought. Next week, we're going to explore children. Yes or no? We'll see you next week, everybody. Keep up the good work. Bye now.